All right, let's get right into it. For the last couple of years, Web3 gaming has felt like this, chaotic, high-stakes experiment. But now, something has fundamentally changed. We're talking about a great big reset. To really get how deep this reset goes, we gotta rewind to the absolute peak of the hype. In 2021 alone, investors poured an unbelievable $4 billion into the space. It was a total frenzy, a digital gold rush where every single project was promising to be the next big thing. And then reality came crashing in. By 2025, that $4 billion fire hose of cash had slowed to a trickle. Just $293 million for the entire year. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's a drop of over 90%. The gold rush was over, and a lot of folks were left standing in a ghost town. Now, when you see a number like that, it's pretty easy to think, well, that's it, the whole experiment failed. But the story is so much more complicated than that. What we're actually seeing isn't an ending, but a really painful and frankly necessary transformation. So what on earth went wrong? In this first part, we're going to break down the issues that turned that incredible boom into a bust. And really, it's a story of flawed strategies and just completely misplaced priorities. This quote from the Blockchain Game Alliance just nails the new mood perfectly. The era of hype is over. We are entering the era of discipline. You hear that? The party's over, and now the real work begins. One of the biggest mistakes was this idea right here. Token-led user acquisition. The plan was, basically, to lure in players with free tokens and airdrops. The problem? This didn't attract gamers. It attracted speculators. People showed up for a quick buck and then vanished, leaving behind these hollowed-out communities with zero real engagement. And the consequences? They were very, very real. This wasn't just some theory. I mean, look at this list. Big, hyped-up projects just folded. And these weren't tiny indie games. These were major ventures that just could not survive once that speculative money dried up. But out of the ashes of that whole mess, a new kind of developer is starting to emerge. So let's move on and see how the survivors are adapting. Because their new playbook, well, that's what's defining the future. This quote from Gunzilla Games just says it all. The projects that are making it are the ones that are starting to act like, real companies. They're focused on structure, on gradual improvement, and on building something that actually lasts, not just something that makes a big splash at launch. And really, what this all boils down to is a massive shift back to realism. The new game plan is actually pretty simple. Focus on the game itself. Launch something small and polished instead of some buggy, overhyped mess. And, maybe most importantly, measure success with the one metric that should have mattered all along. Are people actually playing the game? And they're getting way smarter about who their players are. They've finally realized you can't have this one-size-fits-all approach. Your mainstream or Web2 gamers, they just want to play. They need it to be simple, with less jargon, and they'd prefer someone else manage their wallet for them. But the crypto-native Web3 players, they demand total control, total transparency. They want to manage their own assets. So now, developers are finally starting to build for both. So this brings us to the new philosophy that's really driving the industry. It's not about blockchain first anymore. It's about the player first. It's about earning back trust by delivering actual, real quality. And the data, it totally backs this up. Take a look. This is from the 2025 BGA report. What do developers now say drives success? It's not token hype, it's high-quality games, sustainable business models, and stable, predictable economies. The fundamentals are finally back in charge. And hearing this from a giant like Ubisoft, that's a huge deal. The technology needs to be in the background. It's a tool, part of the plumbing. The star of the show has to be the game. It has to be fun, period. And to build that fun, studios are getting way more nuanced about their audience. They're moving past just simple marketing and identifying these core player types. You've got the cryptos, who are all about the investment, the fans, who are there for the community and the story, and then the casuals, who just want to play a good game. Okay, so let's say you do it. You build a great game for all these different players. Well, now you've got a new problem. How do you manage a massive, exploding community? For that, the industry is turning to a very powerful new tool. And this is not a hypothetical question. There's a studio, Reality Plus, projecting exactly this kind of insane growth. How do you keep a healthy, positive culture when you're scaling that fast? I mean, the old way of doing things, with human moderators, it just breaks. So the answer they're working on is a new framework powered by generative AI. Now, I know this diagram looks incredibly complicated. You got data flying everywhere, AI models, decision engines, but don't worry about the nuts and bolts. The core idea is actually simple. Use AI to understand and guide the community at a scale that no human team could ever hope to manage. So here's how it works, broken down into 3 key steps. First, the AI figures out what type of user you are, crypto, fan, or casual, and gives you the right intro. Second, it intelligently flags toxic behavior for a human to review. And third, and this is the cool part, it actually spots and rewards people for being helpful, for making the community better. It's about scaling the good stuff, not just policing the bad. Okay, so let's pull all this together. We've seen the crash, we've seen the lessons learned, and the new tools being built. What is the one fundamental change at the heart of this great big reset? This slide just captures it perfectly. The industry has shifted from using blockchain as a marketing buzzword to using it as a quiet tool in the background. It's shifted from getting value from a crazy token price to getting value from great gameplay. And it's moved from trying to scale hype to trying to scale a healthy, lasting culture. And because of that massive shift, Web3 games are finally being judged by the same standards as any other game out there. The questions that matter now are the ones that have always mattered. Is it fun? Is it fair? And is it worth a player's time? The developers who survived this crash, they've learned some incredibly hard lessons. They're building better games now, with a much smarter philosophy. So the final question really isn't about the industry anymore. It's about the players. After all the scams and all the hype, are gamers ready to give Web3 another look?